and they're going to tell you a little their name and a little bit about their background, especially as it relates to tonight's topic of discussion, MFA programs versus New York City publishers. So positioning yourself relative to that would be great. Start with Betsy.
My name is Betsy Amster. I'm a literary agent. I've been in book publishing since the dawn of creation. I still really love it. I started out as an editor at Vintage and Pantheon, two divisions of Random House, and then became the editorial director of a small press in Connecticut called the Globe Pequot Press, owned then by the Boston Globe. And then when I moved to Los Angeles in the 90s, became an agent. Being an agent is the most fun that I've had in publishing. I actually love this industry. It is totally quirky and sometimes completely idiotic. But I still, lo these many years later, I still think it's really fun. And my motto is, you never know. And the thing I want to point out about myself is that I have a very, very long leash from New York. Despite the fact that I deal with New York all the time, I am very much a West Coast agent.
Do you miss New York?
You can visit it.
My name is Lee Montgomery, and I'm a writer. I went to Iowa, went to the Iowa Writers Workshop a long time ago. I've spent a lot of the last 20 years working as an editor, as a book editor, and as an editor for literary journals. But that is no longer. I'm no longer editing. I'm just working with people one-on-one, and at this program here in Portland called the Athenaeum, which is a fabulous program for people who don't want a degree but want to be able to have one-on-one mentoring, and working on a novel, which seems to be eternal.
Do you want to mention any of the houses or journals that you've worked with, so people can kind of place you that way?
I started at the Iowa Review, and my first book was with the University of Iowa Press as an editor, and then I went on to I was the editor of the Santa Monica Review in Los Angeles for about 5 years, and I did another anthology there called Acid Disaster that was published by Dove Books. I worked as an editor at Dove Books in Beverly Hills, and we published all these fabulous celebrity memoirs, and mostly memoir by O.J. Simpson jurors. And Faye Resnick, we did Faye Resnick books, and then we also did, one of the greatest books was a book with Heidi Fleiss's Whores. Anyway, I went on from there, and I came up to Portland, and I worked with Tin House for about 10 years. I started as an editor in the magazine, and then I went and I started the conference at Reed College that's there. I think it's like in its 12th year or something. It's incredible. And then I started the book division in 2005. And that is the story. I've been on the West Coast forever, even though I grew up in Boston. The idea of going to New York was expensive.
So my name's Elliot Treichel. I have a collection of short stories with Ooligan Press. The collection is called Closest By. I live in Eugene, and I teach at Lane Community College. I guess I am an MFA person. I grew up in the Midwest and ended up in Eugene because I was going to go to the U of O to attend their graduate program. And sort of as I was moving to Eugene, I decided that I didn't want to go there. I instead went to Bennington College's low residency program, in particular to work with a couple writers. And I think I went to New York. One I was out there in residency. I've been in New York once. That's it. Decidedly not New York. But I did recognize lots of attributes that was Chad was pointing out in his article. The collection of short stories after graduate school, teaching composition and that sort of stuff. So that's me in a nutshell.
I'm Dan DeWeese. I teach at PSU in the MFA program this year. As a kind of sub, though, not an official member. When I went to college stories, and then I realized I didn't want to do that, so I left Los Angeles, went to film school at USC. Decided that I wanted to write. In 2011, I had a novel come out from Harbach Perennial. So I worked with New York people. In 2012, I put out a collection of short stories on my own press. So I outraged the New York people that someone would do that. And that press is called Propeller Books. I started that in 2009. It's a kind of an outgrowth of just a kind of literary and culture website called Propeller. The press just does one book per year. So we're about to put out our 5th book in a couple weeks. So I've done the small press thing as well. I don't know which group I'm here to be on, but I'm just gonna argue. That's it.
Great, thank you all. So it's been alluded to in our speakers' introductions, but I thought I'd do just a little bit of work to contextualize the conversation that we're having here tonight. As some of you may be aware, MFA versus New York City is not my coinage. I did not come up with that. Specifically, that title comes from, first it appeared as an article in N+1 magazine way back in 2010, actually, and the article was authored by Chad Harbach. And in that article, Chad argued that the American literary scene is split into 2 cultures, that there's the culture centered around New York publishing, and then there's another culture that's centered around university MFA programs in creative writing. Harbach, not coincidentally, I'm sure, is an MFA graduate, but he's also the author of The Art of Fielding, which is a mammoth novel, but well worth it, in my opinion. I was duly impressed. That novel also, I think, received the word on the street is that it received a $650,000 advance. So it's kind of in an interesting position as an MFA graduate. He's also the founder of N+1, so the magazine that published the article originally. The article came out in 2010. In 2014, N+1 issued a book with the same name, where they collected essays. Chad Harbach was one of them. They collected other essays on this notion of competing literary cultures, the culture of New York publishing and the culture of MFA programs. That book has essays by people like George Saunders and David Foster Wallace, Alexander Chee, Emily Gould, a whole lot of really terrific writers and thinkers writing about this